Our top story this hour, experts say President Cyril Ramaphosa is on the right track with the initiative to attract investment to the country. The initiative will begin with an investment summit. Ramaphosa announced the team that will visit various countries across the globe to sell South Africa as an attractive investment destination. The team, which includes, among others, a former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel and former Deputy Finance Minister Zumas, will seek to attract about 1.2 trillion rand investment within the next few years. And renewing investor confidence in the country is said to be one of the hallmarks of the Ramaphosa administration.
I think that it looks very far-sighted, sensible thinking by somebody who understands the requirements of the private sector and how business operations really work. He's looked at it from the inside, and I believe that if he can see this through, then perhaps he can do the most important thing, to build up the confidence of potential providers of capital that South Africa so desperately needs. If we can grow that confidence, certainly in the corporate sector, globally and internally, then we have a very good chance of growing the economy as a whole at a significant level to provide those jobs and opportunities that so many so desperately need.
These are exciting times, and I think it comes at the backdrop where promises were made through the SONA, and it's time that the president, together with his new team, fold up their sleeves and get to work. I'm particularly pleased by the caliber of men and women that have been appointed, and to use his own metaphor, the lioness and the lions and whatever pun that he used, to say these are individuals who must go out there to look for investment, bring it home, and to make sure that for once we begin to deal with the scourge of unemployment in this country.
We think it's a bold and ambitious plan that the president has come up with. We welcome it with both hands. We need to do whatever it takes to get out of this stagnating economy and put our economy in a growth trajectory. And the only way we can do that is to unlock the investment opportunities. And the approach that the president has adopted will actually deal with one of the issues that we've been saying in this country, that there's an investment strike, because the focus is not just international investors and local potential investors. One of the reasons our economy has been stagnating is because there's been lack of investment. And once you have investment, you have new factories opening up, you have new machinery, basically capital goods, being bought. And once you do that, you're able to grow the economy.
The investment conference, in which we will want to involve domestic as well as international investors, is not only intended to be a mere talk shop. We would like to have an investment conference of a different type, so that we don't spend a lot of time just talking about the investment climate. Would like this investment conference to be a forum where we present investment deals that would have been concluded, and to provide also a platform for would-be investors who are coming to our country to seek out investment opportunities. In line with our commitment in the State of the Nation address, we said that we want to make a major push this year to encourage significant new investment in the economy. And today we want to launch an initiative what some would say is a very ambitious initiative to drive new investment in our economy. And this drive will culminate, as I said in the State of the Nation address, with the holding of an investment conference, which we would like to hold around August or September.
And on the line, we're joined by Zamo Madlala, Radical Economic Transformation Coalition Secretary General, and we have Volshia Gekwane, National Black Business Caucus CEO. We'll start with you, Volshia. Good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us. I thought operative word was selling South Africa to the world. At what cost? Because there has been concerns around the privatization of SOEs as they've been essentially been rendered dysfunctional. What is your view on this whole drive to visit, trot around the globe and attending to various economic summits, etc., to attract investments?
Good evening, Sydney, and good evening to the viewers as well. I believe, yes, it's an effort, and we cannot be negative about an effort to raise money for the country's economy. What does concern me is, like you mentioned, the selling of assets that are classified non-core assets in our SOEs and so on. If we start selling off, there's a lot of economists claiming that that's the way to save the economy, is by selling off SOEs that are not performing or so on. The minute we start doing that, the more control comes from overseas in what happens internally. We are struggling right now to push radical economic transformation with SOEs actually being under the government's control. Now imagine if it's some profiteering company from some other country that's not interested in the well-being of South African citizens and just interested in a profit. And that means it will become even worse. We got the IPPs that were signed in, which we don't understand why they were signed in, because they supply electricity at a much higher rate than what coal can. We were told by the minister of last year that we did not need anything, the finance minister, then finance minister, Malusi Gigaba, that we did not need any extra electricity, that everything was fine, and we did not need nuclear, and it was off the table. But I think it's cheaper to use nuclear than the IPPs that are being signed on now. So I don't know how people are taking these decisions. As far as raising money, we must know that an investor, when they come in here, they want to bring in 10 rands, they want to take out 12 rands, right? So we must know that there's a lot of money sitting within our economy in the corporate sector that I believe could be what government should be looking at as well. Not say to ignore the foreign direct investment, it's important, but equally so, get the financial institutions to participate in the development of radical economic transformation. Get the corporates who are sitting with hundreds of billions of rands to invest in small business, because small business is what everybody, when they talk about it, when everybody wants to talk something that sounds great, they talk about small business being the...
Yes, and we hear the CEO's initiatives. We know that there's government funding agencies, etc. But even getting through that in itself is a barrier to entry for many black businesses, especially. Zamo Madlala, thank you so much for joining us. Your view in the envoy that is going with President Cyril Ramaphosa, in particular former Finance Trevor Manuel and former Deputy Finance Mcebisi Jonas, in pushing the developmental imperative or requirements of the country. Do you think this is, again, the same old rhetoric where we'll see the profiteering or the major multinationals benefiting over and above the struggling majorities?
Good evening to you, Cindy, and good evening to all. Well, I mean, and I think really I would share my co-panelist's view that any investment must be looked at positively, and we do welcome it. But the catch is the devil lies in the details. When they say they're going out there to sell South Africa, it could mean a lot of things. It could mean we are going out there to sell South African assets, or we are going to go and sell a positive picture of South Africa. And what is that positive picture? What has really significantly changed since President Ramaphosa came and became president over President Zuma? There hasn't really been a major policy shift. So realistically, you'd have to accept that these people are going out there to go and sell the exact same asset. It's just that there's a different feeling now in the market because there's this new dawn and everybody's feeling positive. But really, it goes back to the devil is in the detail. Once the 1.2 trillion rand comes into the country, What is it there to do? Is it there to privatize our core assets? Because I don't believe in this non-core asset sell-off. If Eskom, they're going to say they're going to start privatizing it, you must accept that ultimately Eskom as a company will be privatized. If you look in Europe, currently right now, a lot of countries in Europe are trying to buy back their energy and water companies that they had privatized, I think, about 20 years ago, because they realized that model doesn't work. And that is the first world that is doing that. And we are still wanting to walk down that path, which I just find just totally disastrous, of wanting to privatize things that we need. Energy, water, and those such assets can never be privatized. But when we look at it, we think that's the route we want to go.
But why do we have these discussions post the fact? And now we're about the independent power producers, many arguing that because of the Paris Accord and our obligation for cleaner energy, it's a good thing, and we can use the abundance of the natural elements in providing an alternative to the coal-based energy supply. And of course, now there's a threat in the sense of energy security. But why do we always are reactionary to these things, Amo?
Well, that's a fair question. Why are we always reactionary? Perhaps sometimes it's because you just don't have the quality information. I mean, my co-panelist showed the energy story. Last year we were told we've got excess capacity, we don't need nuclear. Okay, fine, great. But then they come this year and they sign IPPs. Although there was a court case, when the court finds against people trying to stop it, what do you then do? Must we go to the street and burn the country down? The questions really come to that, in that what access do the majority have to actually have their word heard? Like when you even look at this whole panel that has been chosen, I believe you have a banker, you have Trevor Manuel, who's an executive chairman of Rothschild. When you look at their leaning, they all lean towards free market, capitalism, and all of that. And when we look at the country and what we still need to do, there's still social investments that need to be made in developing our people. And when I look at that panel, there is not a single person. They are all investment type specialists, which are going to go there to go and sell things to investors, and investors are looking for profit. And that is all they are interested in. You get into business because you want to make a profit.
Yeah.
Taking care of your employees is only in the interest of profit.
Yeah, I think let's just profile the meeting in terms of the delegation or the envoy that is going to the UK and developed nations, the South African delegation to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And this is under the theme towards a common future between These are former colonizers. I mean, his first stop was in the UK, meeting the Queen of England, and he's gone to meet the Prime Minister. We hear that there are collaborations in terms of training and support with the reserve banks of selected African countries. Amo, and we'll come back to you on your reaction, including our own Reserve Bank in training and support with the Bank of England and the European Central Bank as well. How do you read all of that, Vosha?
Well, to be honest, going to meet England is nothing new. I mean, I do not know why we are still attached at the hip with England, because we call ourselves a republic. Yet we have high commissioners, we're part of the Commonwealth Games. Everything Commonwealth is still a part of, but we call ourselves a republic. When you go to Australia, you find the High Commissioner of South Africa there, which means we are subjects of the Queen of England. So this relationship and how government is running it, claiming that we are independent as a nation, our sovereignty is, it's based on kissing up to somebody. And South Africa is a great country. We shouldn't be doing that. Our president should be firm. If British people want to invest in South Africa, there must be terms and conditions of how they invest. We must not go out on bended knee. We have the resources in our country. We have the substance of wealth in our country. But we constantly fail to manage those resources. We constantly fail to take a stand on those resources. We go to meet countries as if they are superior to us and we are coming at an inferior level. And there's nothing about us that justifies being inferior to any other country. So the idea of meeting the British, to me, is not that exciting, because the British have long been here. main reason why we're in this situation today is because a British landed on our shores.
Yeah, I want to get to Zuma, whether people would get excited. There's a new sheriff in town, so to speak, and a shared confidence, more policy stability, and we're getting word that there is a treasured trove of investment that is coming to the country. What do you think materially this would mean to Joe Soap or the narrowing of the inequality gap?
To be honest, it means absolutely nothing to Joe Soap. If you listen to the president's own words, he wants to have a investment, what did they call it, an investment meeting or whatever, somewhere in August or October, and there they want to be initiating deals. And when you initiate deals, there's going to be nothing that takes care of Joe Soap, because it's enough for you to have to take care of the shareholders and the investors themselves. So when they're saying that they are going to be having these deals by October this year, I ask myself that, okay, what are you selling? Because I don't see the policy shifted. There's no one who has spoken beneficiation. The mining charter is not sorted out. So in terms of policy itself, I don't see where that money is going to come in, and in terms of foreign direct investment, actually putting up factories and doing those things. This is the short-term money that comes on JSE or money that's going to come in and privatize. Other than that, what is it that it's going to do? What have we as a country changed since President Zuma exited to say now we are more attractive as a destination? And when you look at the policies of the ruling party and what they said, it is not attractive to any investor. What the ruling party said as its policies, it's more social in nature. We are talking expropriating land. Now you're saying people must come and invest money. Then the guy says, okay, I come and invest money, I build a factory, and then you come and expropriate my land. I can't take my factory. So somewhere, somehow, when I listen to it, all I hear is we're going to go and fetch 1.2 trillion to come in and privatize South African assets. That's the only logical conclusion I can reach.
All right, Zama, just hold on. Yeah, I just wanted to, before I lose my train of thought, in terms of the BRICS relationship, what this means, this posture of pursuing, or rather wooing, the European market investors and business people. And, well, the tour is not complete as yet. He may just still make the rounds around the BRICS nations.
Yes, well, that one still's yet to be seen, because we will be having BRICS, if I'm not mistaken, during the winter of this year here in South Africa. But you've seen the history of BRICS when, BRICS is a problem to a lot of the power mongers in the world. And you've seen Brazil's situation, what happened. As soon as BRICS was starting to come together, the president of that country was impeached, and another president came in who's now not really focused on BRICS the way the previous one was. Same happened to Jacob Zuma, President Jacob Zuma. Attack left, right, and center, unseated, and somebody else comes. So we don't know what the new somebody else is going to do with BRICS. We're yet to see. I don't want to pass judgment on something that I haven't seen yet. But during our winter in South Africa, we'll get to know what's happening with BRICS, with this new regime that's in now.
I mean, the BRICS summit in itself could just be another talk shop, Zamo, and I think that's the concern, that we are not, it seems like we're making or regressing in certain progress made when it comes to issues of the inclusive economy, whatever that means, and how we then ensure that there is more participation of those that were marginalized into the economy. I don't think those kind of deals, that's what they talk about in the echelons of power, the corridors of Buckingham Palace.
Definitely not. Firstly, unlike my co-panelist, I will actually put my word out there and say that under President Ramaphosa, we are definitely turning our back slightly on BRICS. I'm not saying that he's got any issues, Russia, China, India, but definitely under President Zuma, our leaning was more towards the east than it was towards the west. Ever since he's become president, we can see the leaning will be more towards the west than it is towards the east. Because if it was the other way around, by now you would have found that there would have been a Chinese envoy or something that had come to the country, or a Russian envoy. But when you look at it, he's been to Davos, he's done a lot of that, which shows that our leaning is going towards the West. So on that note, we're definitely going back towards the West. In terms of the majority must always remain there, and I suppose we will hope for jobs. But in terms of effective ownership and control of our own country, sadly, I will say my honest opinion is that no, that's not what's going to happen. When investors come in, they come in to privatize and to make a profit, and those profits are expatriated overseas. The IPPs, we keep on thinking that they're going to be South African. There's no such. All of that money is going to be expatriated to Europe or wherever the technology is coming from, because we do not have the technology locally. Worse, things like the insurance side of it, in terms of how government has laid it up, in terms of demanding that there's local participation in it, they haven't done it. So there is talk of wanting to involve South Africans and all of that, but when you look at the core raw actions, it's business as usual. Nothing has changed.
And Vosha, I mean, you know, we're very well entrenched in the systems of our former colonizers based on the historical legacy, colonialism, etc., that it is difficult to want to change the mold now, especially when you have a president that pretty much speaks the language of the West, a former finance minister, that one would hope that there is a sense now of urgency that indeed this economic transformation ought to happen, and not the cosmetic approaches that we've seen like BEE and triple PFM, you know, preferential procurement, if you will. So what do you think there is that glimmer of hope that that's the kind of sober discussions that they're having?
It's when you look at the statistics, there's very little hope. The very World Bank produced a report that tells us that 3 million South Africans have gone into poverty since 2013, I think they said. And that is not hopeful. You know, that means there's 3 million more people who are worse off than what they were in the past. And we talk about, I agree with Zamo that you've got this bringing in 1.3 billion into the country, 1.3 trillion into the country, to do what? Because in any case, the individual who's got a small business, who's supposed to be employing 4 or 5 or 10 people in that business, does not have access to anything. We see a repetition of everything where contracts either go to white-owned companies in our state-owned entities, and that's a reality. So whatever money is going to come to reinforce or put more money into an Eskom or a Transnet, the master contracts are still going to go to white people. And them going to white people means the black person still does not develop, right? And when a business is set up and it's got employees and cannot get contracts and it keeps getting sidelined, those people become unemployed and they fall into poverty. So they make up that 3 million, that number that we just talked about. We need to have a system internally here that is going to implement radical economic transformation, implement it in a realistic, sustainable manner, and not be, you know, a roundabout nice speech for a politician to make. We need to see it happening on the ground. Spatial planning has to change. If it does not change, you cannot change anything in this country. We are still living under the same spatial planning of the apartheid era, where we are just thrown into dumping sites where they keep building new RDPs, building new ghettos. We are not changing anything in our country. So that has to change.
Zamo, you also feel the sense that it's taken the wind out of the sail of radical economic transformation in a sense, and that, you know, even the frustration of having to deal with a 24-year democratic system that hasn't benefited those that had been sidelined by the system, you know, it's being perpetuated.
Well, on that note, I'll want to leave it to the voter. The voter must decide. There's time up until next year's elections. I don't know what the options are and what political parties are putting out there, but the idea that I've come to observe is that in South Africa, everybody talks one way, and then when they get in and they're in power, they act another. quite frankly, I don't believe that the African National Congress has actually served its people the way it should have and the way it says it has. Yes, they've got all the policies, but look at how the actors have come in and acted. They have not acted in the interest of the majority. You look now, you still sit with the SASA debacle, and who does that impact? It impacts the poorest of the poorest and the marginalized. Government is now saying that, no, yes, the increase of 10 Rand we were giving you, now you're going to have to use that to pay as a fee because we haven't done our job to ensure that you are paid first. So the question becomes the voter needs to end up deciding that when you look at the people that sit in power, who do they consider to be important? Now, if they don't consider the person who puts them in power to be important, then the voter needs to decide what they do with it.
All right, Zamo, let's give Moshe the closing remarks or the last word. Thank you so much. That's Zamo Madlala from Radical Economic Transformation Coalition. Is this a hallmark, in your view, of the Ramaphosa administration in how we quelled fears of investors and put us without blemish again in front of the world's eyes?
Without blemish? I don't know without blemish. If you speak about Ramaphosa's legacy or whatever it is he's building, I have to see it in his term. Right now he's finishing off things that were started by somebody else. So we cannot say Ramaphosa's changes. There's a global view that South Africa's got this new dawn, right? And that's what's being sold to the West. But that new dawn, at what cost is it coming? Just like this so-called independence that we have, at what cost is it coming? We cannot sell our assets. We cannot be on bended knee towards people operating our core assets in our own country. We need to maintain ownership of what we've got, and we need to get those mines serving the people. The minerals have to empower South Africans.
All right, and that's the view of Sheikh Ekwane. Thank you, as always, for joining us. He's the National Black Business Caucus CEO, joining us in studio. And you at home, thanks indeed for watching. We'll be back with the latest sports and news update. For now, though, let's take a look at the latest weather.